as the deadline approaches for a federal committee to submit its report on implementing local government autonomy, there are indications that state governors are intensifying efforts to block the enforcement of a recent Supreme Court ruling. Now, this comes as the 10-member panel led by Secretary to the Government George Akume is set to present its findings by October 13th. The July 2024 Supreme Court decision mandated direct payment of allocations to local government accounts, stripping governors of control over these funds. Despite President Tinubu's public support for the ruling, sources report governors are lobbying officials to delay implementation. Civil society groups are urging swift action, calling on the federal government to introduce legislation to solidify the autonomy as the National Union of Local Government Employees expects implementation to begin soon after the committee's report submission. Now, local officials report mixed preparedness, with some areas opening a new bank account for direct federal payments, while others await further instructions. Arise News analyst Dayo Sobowale joins us now for a chat on this latest effort by governors to undermine the Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy and the need to safeguard the judgment and strengthen governance at the grassroots.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the program. Give us an idea of what's going on and what we can expect with this new implementation.
That's right. I think mostly saying that the governors are about to subvert the judgment of the Supreme Court is exaggeration. It is exaggeration. Because maybe the government itself suspected this could happen, and it had taken efforts to make sure the governors don't succeed. That was why after the Supreme Court judgment, the president inaugurated a committee made up of key elements in government, you get me, who are likely, if they are not on board, who are likely to use bureaucracy to slow it down. That is, if they favor the government.
Which is what's happening now.
That is not what is happening. What is happening is that this committee will submit its report on the 13th October. And if the committee now fails to submit the report, then you can smell the rat and say maybe the governors are not playing ball or the governors are not happy with it. But Nigeria is under the rule of law. And the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. It has ruled on it. Government must implement it. And then when you look at a situation where it was government who sought for the sort of judgment the Supreme Court gave, then you will see that it is in the interest of government to speedily implement it. You see, I thought government was delaying matters before when he set up the committee. But if you know Nigeria, and I think the president knows his government, he brought his secretary to the government, all the important state institutions that can facilitate swift implementation of it, and they are on board, and they have met, and they have submitted their report on the 13th. So let's tarry a while before condemning the governors.
All right, Mr. Sobowale, but let's just, I'm just wondering, there are concerns about the capacity of the local government or at the local government level. If the autonomy is achieved, how do we ensure the local governments can effectively manage their resources without state interference?
Let the autonomy come into place first. That is, don't jump the gun.
I'm saying if it happens, let's just project. Let's pretend that it happens.
How can we pretend? That's
let's anticipate that
people
it's
are
implemented.
Doubting the governors, and even the governors. You have not heard the side of the governors. The governors, about 3 of them spoke, and they said they have no reason to. You get me? And I think it is Kwara, who was chairman of the Governors Forum. He said in his own state, you get me? They don't sit on the local government funds. But now the Supreme Court has ruled. And what we are discussing here are raised here, that the affairs that the governors want to subvert it. And I said, don't let us jump the gun. The committee put in place by the government, which won the case, will submit its report on October 13th. Let's wait for that.
And you don't think that the governors would be able to prevent anything? They might just be able to delay.
Look, Susan, this is the rule of law. They must respect. They must respect the judgment won by the government.
So if everything
by the Supreme Court, yes.
If everything plays out as it should,
Yes.
what would then the relationship be between local and state government?
It will be that the local governments will be financially independent.
And then how is that worked out?
Hitherto, when their funds are passed through the governors, and invariably the governors sit on it. You get me? It is the federal government itself, through its attorney general, that went to court. You get me? To say that local government finances should be autonomous. And the Supreme Court gave the verdict in favor of the local government.
Yep.
So, we are on course.
All right. Now, the Constitution's fourth schedule outlines specific functions for local governments. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, how has state interference possibly prevented local governments from fulfilling their constitutional duties?
That is apparent, very, very apparent. If you see what is happening at the local government elections, you will see that the party is state, in power in the state, invariably wins the election. And government is going further on that to try and create something like INEC for the local government, so that it doesn't become a one-party affair. And this is because of this lack of financial autonomy that the governors hold the purse strings and invariably dictate which party wins, and invariably it is the party in power in the state that wins the election. Next question.
But what mechanisms do you think that could be put in place to make sure this works the way it should?
See, I will still repeat, let us wait till October 13th. Let us see that report.
Hypothetically, you don't think that there could be potential challenges?
No way.
Or compromises?
You see, even what you are discussing is speculation. Speculative. Do you get me? No governor in his right senses will go against the judgment of the Supreme Court of the land. It is the Supreme Court that interprets the Constitution. And the government, federal government, was the aggrieved party in this case. And it went to court. So it is in the interest of the federal government to see a judicious execution and fast one of this. It's part of the restructuring that people have been talking about. And I'm waiting for October 13th.
Okay, we'll wait with you, but we'll still ask you the questions that we have.
Okay,
so, Mr. Sobowale, this is often the area that you thrive in when it comes to giving us examples,
don't give me any assignment.
Global examples. You usually get, like yesterday, you talked about Mexico, I believe, when we're discussing that matter. But when you look at successful models globally, which countries' local government system could Nigeria learn from, and what specific aspects could we adopt?
You see, we have so many, like our colonial master, Britain, the U.S., municipalities, the boroughs. You see, what you are really talking about now is, you talk of separation of powers. The Constitution is clear. It's the local government down that brings development to local communities. That is why the West is developed. You get me? Because grassroots, the boroughs, where they have elections, and people use their own money to develop their environment. You have it in the West. Get me? I will mention the Soviet Union, because they are not democracies, but you have it in the West. You have it mostly in the West. EU nations, they have it. And they are independent, they have their rights. They take governments to court if it violates it. That means just like the states will take federal government to court. And this is a fine example for us. It's our federal government that is fighting for autonomy for the grassroots. That's restructuring. But people who want restructuring, until the federal government gives power to the states, they don't see restructuring. But this is what people should be celebrating. This is grassroots democracy.
Do you believe that there's grassroots political movements that can help accommodate this?
Of course, if the funding is there. You get me now. Before, it's the state government that pays for the Christmas and gives money to the local governments. But now, they say they're not sending the money to the local government chairman through the state houses or through the state government. They send it directly. Before this judgment, the money will go to the governors. And it doesn't trickle down. We are talking of democracy. If the grassroots does not enjoy the dividend of democracy, then we are not practicing
Do you mind if I ask
responsive
you a follow-up
democracy.
question?
Sure.
I just wanted to know what's the how can this reduce corruption? This financial autonomy at the local level.
Well, the fear has always been that corruption is most prominent at the local government level. So when I was growing up, I wanted to work. I never wanted to work in the local government. I haven't never wanted to work in the state, federal. But see, the reverse is the case now. In my situation, those who work at the local government are better off than those of us who work. So that's the situation. Corruption is endemic in this community. But see, let they have the autonomy and be free of the coercion of the governors, then we all will monitor them to see that they use money for what it's meant to be used for. Public accountability.
That makes sense. All right, Mr. Sobowale, we've definitely seen previous attempts, at local government reforms that were not successful. So I'm wondering what makes this Supreme Court judgment different in terms of the specific legislative or constitutional safeguards that might be needed to protect it.
Fine question. This is unprecedented. Even this president, when he was governor of Lagos State, took the federal government to court. When he created local development authorities and they said they can, he took the federal government to court and he won. So it is ironic that he is the one now giving the much needed autonomy that he seemed to be protecting before now. You see, the Attorney General that took all the governors to court on behalf of government. And the Supreme Court ruled on behalf of government. We are not talking of complicity there. Because this favors the grassroots. It means our democracy is working. In spite of the suspicion of corruption and all that, let the autonomy be. Let it be, then we see how it works. That's democracy at the grassroots level.
Fantastic.
So it should be commended.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we certainly commend you for your...
We commend the Supreme Court.
We commend you for your robust analysis and the Supreme Court. Arise News analyst, Mr. Dayo, thank you so much for joining us here on Newsday. We appreciate your time, as always. Thank you.